Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with a little bit of a late Market Monday. We'll call this Market Wednesday for this week. Apologize for not getting it out on time. Had some other commitments I had to do, and we've been tearing down a wall at the store, so we finally got that done and sorting a ton of cards. So I am going to do a Market Wednesday video, and a lot of these picks are redundant picks. I called these a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I talked about them, but I still think that they are the top three of investments. I am a huge fan of what I consider like penny stocks or dollar stocks. I like to target cards that are under a dollar. They have the best chance to, as a percentile, grow the fastest. And a lot of times it's because the vendors do not have these on hand. These are usually in bulk bins, and it's just not something that a lot of people are posting on eBay and TCG. And so when these cards do spike, they can spike hard and fast. We saw that with one of my best specs ever was Stony Silence, and I bought 250 of them at 5 cents a piece on MTGO, and I sold out of them between $2 and two tickets and 4 tickets on MTGO. I spec'd in a few of them. I think they're around 50 cents a piece in paper, and now Stony Silence is up to around $14. Other picks in the past that I've called very I think are some of my better picks are Hellrider. I bought into Hellrider at bulk rare and sold out at $8 to $9 when the format rotated and Hellrider became a staple in red aggro decks. And there have been some other good picks that, like Tidebinder Mage is one of my picks that I think will pay off in the long run. Yeah. Anyway, so I like these sort of picks over mythics or rares that are already around $5, $10, $15, as a card going from 5 to 10 is just as significant as basically a rare going from 50 cents to $1, but more likely the scenario that a 50-cent card goes up to like $4 or $5 once it starts to see play in its in the formats that it is popular in. So I'm going to first of all call Devastating Summons. I know I talked about this a couple weeks ago. It once again found its way into a deck. It was actually a Goblins deck that it's a 2 of. See if we can actually find the deck here that it was played in. But I mean, I think this is 3 weeks in a row that we've seen the Devastating Summons actually hit a Goblin deck. So this one has 2 in the main board and 1 in the sideboard. And the reason why it's so strong in a Goblins based deck is the number of Bushwhackers. This is an 8 Bushwhack deck, and everything is very fast. There's even no lords in this deck. They are definitely the focal point of this deck is going to be the Bushwhackers, and Devastating Summons in that all-out strategy where you don't even want to try to survive another turn. It's either all or nothing. You win this turn. This card is phenomenally powerful. So it's 1 mana as additional cost to cast Devastating Summons. You sacrifice X lands and put 2 X red elemental creature tokens on the battlefield. The most likely scenario is this is going to turn on a Reckless Bushwhacker on turn number 3. You can sacrifice all of your lands, have 2 3/3s, cast a Bushwhacker. If you've casted, let's say a 1-drop on turn number 1 and like a War Marshal on turn number 2, you should have 3 creatures on the battlefield right there. The Reckless Bushwhacker and the Devastating Summons make 6. You're swinging in for lethal, even if you haven't even got in any damage with that. Another case you can do with this is on like turn 4, sack all of your lands, make 2 4/4s, float some mana, even cast 2 Bushwhackers at that point and just swing in for way more than lethal. Works very well with Legion Loyalists as it will give it trample, usually with the Devastating Summons. Just a phenomenal card in this type of archetype, and it's a very inexpensive deck to get into. It's around 74 tickets on MTGO and only around $250 for Modern, which is very low, and you can actually cut out more than half of that by getting rid of the Goblin Guides. You could easily replace Goblin Guides with, I like the what's the one that when it dies, Goblin Arsonist, I think is a very reasonable play, or even just a 1/1 haste Goblin. There are plenty of goblins in the whole archetype of Magic that I think you could easily replace the Goblin Guide with, and it wouldn't make that big of a difference. Goblin Guide getting it for 2 damage turn 1 and turn number 2 is very significant, but I mean, against some decks, it's the Arsonists are actually better. So that's the first pick. This is 3 weeks in a row. We saw in his 2 zoo decks. One had 3 of them, I believe, in the deck. Another one had 1. But again, this is another deck with 3 of them in a copy. It's just a matter of time before more copycats start building this Goblins version, and the price has to go up from 35 cents. It's already started to see a little bit of movement on the upward trend, but I think this is a great time to get into Devastating Summons. It actually gets a lot better with the more lands that want to die. I'm surprised we haven't seen some sort of like Flaxstone Care build with Devastating Summons. And also just Gitrog Monster, if there's ever any brews, that this is a good way to sack lands to draw cards with Gitrog Monster and actually get value out of it. Speaking of Gitrog Monster, my next pick is going to be Realms Uncharted. Realms Uncharted, I think, has specifically been going up. Look at the foil price of this, $10. That's usually EDH that is spiking that price, but this is a very, very key card in the Gitrog Monster Commander, and it is a phenomenal. If your playgroup has not built a Gitrog Monster, I swear every playgroup is playing this card to death. I believe it was according to EDH Rec, it was the most built commander in the past month is the Gitrog Monster, and this is going to be one of the picks that they pick up very, very quickly, especially since it's only 85 cents. But it is basically not a fact or fiction, gifts ungiven for lands. So search your library for 4 land cards with different names and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards, put the chosen cards in your graveyard, and the rest into your hand. It's actually a very versatile land. One of the things that is good with running black in EDH is you have the Cobble Coffers and Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth combination, and what you can do with this is you can go tutor it up, and then they go to the graveyard, and if you have any way to get them back from like Life from the Loam, which you will be using in a Gitrog Monster type strategy, you can then just get them back and have your combo out with the Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth and Cobble Coffers. So beyond that, though, it has seen a little bit of play in some Assault Loam decks. I've checked the recent ones. There hasn't been any running Realms Uncharted, but I've seen it as like a 1 or 2 of before in the Loam Pox, just because it's 4 lands. Because with Life of the Loam, you need lands in the graveyard just to keep it going. And Realms Uncharted, though, can get specific lands. I wonder if there's a deck that runs, like if I were to ever to build like an arena-based deck now, I might actually have this card in there as a way to tutor up arena. Most likely arena will go to the graveyard, but in some sort of fight decks before, I've used like Gavany Township or Vault of the Archangels, or just some other flex lands like Ghost Quarters, and your opponent picks 2 of them, and at least you'll have some relevant lands that you can get value out of. I wish this card was standard because I think it would work perfectly with Seasons Past, like tutoring up, just 4 different lands, and one of them being like Blighted Fen or Westvale Abbey. I think that with the more lands printed, the stronger this card becomes over time, and having this be like a bulk rare is very undervalued for what it does. Alrighty, so my last pick is going to be the Golgari Grave-Troll. We've talked about this before. I think it is of course, it's the whole reason to run Dredge. At $3.50 for the pivotal focal point of an archetype in Modern that we are starting to see a lot of decks play now. The Dredge Vines we're starting to see like 1 or 2 a week go 5-0 on MTGO. Let's just go and click on this archetype. There's a few ways to build it. This one is with the Vengevine, so Vengevine and Golgari Grave-Troll, but it seems to be that Prize Amalgam has really put this deck over the top. This one is going to use Hedron Crabs, Gravecrawlers, Bloodghast, Lava Trolls, and Stinky Whip and the Golgari Grave-Troll to dredge stuff in, a Life from the Loam, and Faithless Looting rather than the other route. I'm actually starting to build an Ideas Unbound and Faithless Looting. I think an Ideas Unbound is just a little more powerful than Is It Charm. And Ideas Unbound says draw 3 cards and then discard 3 cards at the end of turn. For 2 mana, I think it's one of the premier ways to get Golgari Grave-Troll into the graveyard. And the draw 3 is huge. You can actually, with the draw, you stack the draws, and you can, if you have more than one Golgari Grave-Troll or Stinkweed Imp in the graveyard, you can go crazy with the Dredge and basically get a bunch of cards in the graveyard. I'm not sure if I like the Narcomoeba or Vengevine route. I'm leaning towards Vengevine, but still, I think I'd build this a little bit different than this one. I think the Neonaut, the Insolent Neonaut from the new set, Shadows of Innistrad, is very powerful with even Vengevine because it's something you can cast and then sack it, discard something, and Dredge. All in the same turn, so it really gets those Vengevines and Golgari Grave-Trolls in the graveyard to be recurred. This one is trying to get Gravecrawlers, as many Gravecrawlers as possible in the graveyard, so then you can recast Gravecrawlers to trigger off the Vengevine. And then a lot of the Trolls is just another way to put cards that are in your hand in the graveyard. So this is a fine build, and it went 5-0. So we've had this sniper 5-0 with this version, and I believe this is going to be a little bit different with Insolent Neonaut. This still is the Vengevine version. I do like this version a lot, but I'm thinking I kind of like this Justin O'Keefe version. Oh, this isn't the one. No, the one I played against on MTGO with the Narc Amoeba and Is It Charm, Faithless Looting, but instead of Is It Charm going into the Ideas Unbound. But so you can see there's plenty of decks that have done quite well. What did this guy get? Second place in a Modern IQ. And these two decks, the Sniper and Legion 273, went 5-0 with Dredgevine. There will be people that want to mix things up in Modern, and this deck is going to be built in basically every play group that plays Modern. Someone's going to build Dredge, and it's just a matter of time before I think the supply outstretches the demand, or the demand outstretches the supply, and Golgari Grave-Troll goes up from its $3 price. It was only printed in Ravnica and then in a dual deck. The dual deck was right just about when Magic started to become very, very popular. We have this like barrier, this threshold called Return to Ravnica, and all cards before Return to Ravnica have had insane growth, but everything past Return to Ravnica has kind of been a little bit stale, just because of the huge player influx that came from Shadow of Innistrad, or Innistrad, into Return to Ravnica when we had that huge player growth. So it does that. Is it versus Golgari was right at the very first of that. I'm not sure how many of those were placed into the marketplace. That's the one I'm specifically targeting, is the because it seems to be 50 cents cheaper than the Ravnica version. And so yeah, that's definitely my advice. Sorry if there's nothing really new. I still think these are the best targets. I'm starting to like Tidebinder Mage again, just because I think that Tidebinder Mage is starting to be more relevant in the Merfolk builds. As I spec'd a ton. I bought over 300 copies of Tidebinder Mage, and I still think it was a very, very good spec, because there's no way I knew they're going to print Harbinger of Tides, which is just a little bit better than Tidebinder overall. But as green decks, as the Collected Company decks and the Court of Calling decks and Jund start getting a little bit more popular, I think Tidebinder Mage is going to start showing up as 3-of and 4-ofs in the sideboards of Merfolk, if not in the main board, because Tidebinder Mage just does such a phenomenal job versus Elves. Or mana dorks in general. As you tap down a green creature, it doesn't untap until they deal with your Tidebinder Mage. So Tarmogoyf, Scavenging Oozes get tapped down. The Birds of Paradise and Noble Hierarch get tapped down. Glistener Elves can even be tapped down until they deal with that Tidebinder Mage. So I think Tidebinder Mages are still around 70 to 90 cents. They were printed in either an intro pack or some way there was ways to get Tidebinders for cheaper. But Harbinger is definitely going to be a card that I'm going to target post rotation if it starts to go down. So anyway, that's just some ideas. Again, I apologize kind of for the redundancy of this, but these are still my targets. I don't think that there's anything else that would even come close. Some little tip here with MTG Goldfish, I'd actually, if anyone knows a website that shows percentile growth, I know the MTG Stocks does, but it has to have a $5 threshold, I believe. It's like a $3, $4, or $5 threshold. But one of the things I like to do, especially with these when pre-Return to Ravnica sets, is I like to come over here to this Modern tab, and you go to Price List, and then you just pick on any card here, or any set here. So let's just look at New Phyrexia, for example. And what I like to do is hit on this weekly percentage, because you can start to see, so there's no growth in any of these cards. Nothing's gone up above 7% in New Phyrexia, so this is a bad example. But if you come over here to, let's just say, Innistrad, this one should have some growth here, and you click on here, you can find like 63% growth in Moon Mist. So that means there's a lot of activity in this Moon Mist, and it can start to let you know before there's going to be a spike on a card. This is a common. Holy, I'm going to go check my bulk now for Moon Mist. So Moon Mists are now a card that was 10, 20 cents up to 67 cents. The foils are $10. So always go and check these. Just check a few a day and see if there's any movement. This is the best way to get ahead of the commons and uncommons, because there will be so many, like thousands of these listed on TCG Player. And then when the people start buying them out, all of them will be very, very close to the same price. So here you can see a spike here. They're all, I'd say the majority, 85, 90% of the cards were all listed of Moon Mist from 20 cents to 50 cents. And now all of them have been bought out from 50 cents or below, and we see this huge spike from 50 cents to 70 cents. And it's just going to come down a bit when people relist them. I have hundreds of these Moon Mists, for example. So vendors like me will just start to relist these. But it seems like a lot of the werewolves, vampires, zombies from the Innistrad format. Let's just go back to Innistrad, see if we can see some more price growth. I think the other one, the one that, yeah, Full Moon's Rise has gone up 21%, 9 cents, but that's 21% in the last week. And another week after that, they might actually go up another 9 cents. And these, it's just a good way to get ahead of these spikes, just trying these percentile growths. So again, reaching out to the community, if anyone knows a website that actually looks at more of the penny stocks rather than MTG stocks, that has that $3-4 threshold before they actually show like the percentile growth weekly winners, I'm definitely interested. If someone wants to create that sort of program or software that will do that, that'd be a huge advantage to how I speculate into cards. Just again, I like the penny stocks. I'm not one of those persons that likes to go all out and spec on like a $25-30 card, just because I think the risk is way too heavy compared to the potential reward. I found a very good outlet to, I think Puka Trade is a wonderful way to get rid of those $1 and $2 cards. And if you bought into them at 5 cents, then you can actually trade up to those more expensive cards. I have an article that I've been writing about Puka Trade. I need to get around to it. A lot of people in the MTG community, especially the YouTube community, have voiced their dissatisfaction over Puka Trade, and I too have a little bit of reservations. Well, I wouldn't say a little bit. I have a lot of reservations when it comes to Puka Trade, but for now it has worked. I've traded over $3,000 on Puka Trade. The support is pretty quick. Like if someone sends you a heavy played card when it should be near mint, or they just didn't send you something, the admins actually they review the cases quite quickly and things get resolved. But as Open Boosters or MTG Degree or MTG Lion have all stated, there are some very huge flaws in the system, and I want to address all those in more of a reasonable video, because it seems that most people that use Puka Trade are very polarized, very black and white. Either they hate it and it's the biggest scam ever and everyone's going to lose all of their money, or they love it and it's the most wonderful thing ever and it doesn't have any problems, and Puka Trade's amazing, and you know, peace, love, and serenity. But it seems to be I'm right in the middle. I understand that there is inherent flaws with how it works. There's some things that tick me off about it, and we'll get around to addressing that. It's an article in the making. I've just been extremely busy with things, and once things settle down, we'll start to get to more the nitty gritty, the nuts and berries of, or nuts and bolts of the financial world. I also have a lot of other things coming up. I want to get back on a nice little schedule for videos. A lot of people have emailed me and asked me to continue my Commander series. The Commander series will not be continued until I get a laptop down at the store. So we have a number of ways that we're going to try to fundraise that laptop. Once I'm around 25,000 subscribers, I'm going to get right into trying to, I think 25,000 is finally the threshold where YouTube can be a serious endeavor. And I'd love to do the Commander videos and be more on this, like 1 or 2 videos per day schedule that has a theme like Market Mondays and whatnot. But at the moment, it's just not feasible with not having, having to be at the store 8 hours a day and then having all the other things in life just, get in the way. But I hope you enjoyed this Market Monday video. Once again, we'll recap. I really think Devastating Summons is a no-brainer. This is 3 weeks in a row that it's had a showing on a 5-0 deck. I think that Dredge Vine is now legit. I think that the Prized Amalgam gives you another reason to run the deck. And I think that the Gitrog Monster Commander players are going to keep outstretching a lot of those cards. I think there was a card from Mirage that was like called something Squandered Resources that just spiked out of control after the Gitrog Monster. So you can see that the EDH crowd, the casual crowd, can affect the marketplace a ton. Look into a lot of the zombies like Endless Ranks of the Dead, Lord of the Undead. There is the Undead War Chief. All of those, all the zombies, vampires, and werewolves, even these casual-based cards like Kieran Outlaw, Instigator Game, has started to go up, and that's even without me pushing any sort of planar format. Still interested in doing the planar format. Again, I apologize. Just too much things on my plate, and I'm going to try to avoid burnout by trying to do too many things at the same time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.